Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. You're probably looking at me. You might be able to see I've got curry stains on my lips. I've just had a bit of it's fish and chip night at the mess, which funnily enough, you might be asking why have you got curry on your mouth if you've eaten fish and chips. Well, for whatever reason, every time I have fish and chip night, which is every fucking Friday, and I'm a little bit over it, but every Friday when we have fish and chip night, they put out this curry sauce, and I've never thought of curry sauce ever in my life until I came to this particular project. There's a high number of Indians on this project, so maybe that explains it. I don't know. Anyway, I've got yellow lips. What I wanted to make this particular video about was I was on my way to work today and I was thinking, what am I going to make my video about tonight? I was thinking maybe I should have to start watching the news, keep up with current events. I thought back to why I stopped watching the news in the first place. I was very heavily into staying informed and right into politics and stuff. Back around probably 2012 I started getting a bit that way, but by about 2014 I was rabid political partisan hack. And, it caused me, I quite often would get into these barneys with my friends, particularly on Facebook, and other social media outlets. And, that explains a lot too. Is, how poorly do we behave on social media compared to in real life? But that's not the point of this story. We'll get to that another time. But watching the news, I used to, anyone that had a adverse political leaning to me, I was like, you're just misinformed. You just you're just not keeping up with current events. What you really need to understand is, typical fucking lefty know-it-all I was at the time. And then I noticed there's a friend of mine, he was probably 10, 12 years older than me, something like that, so he's an older guy, someone I really respected, we used to butt heads on politics, but one thing I noticed was he had some really eye-opening ideas, and when we'd butt heads, I'd sort of ask him to please explain how you come to that that reasoning, that idea that you're trying to express, and he would express it really succinctly and quite well, and you go, ooh, maybe I'm missing something here, And anyway, I just noticed this guy, this friend of mine, Steve-O, if you're watching this, Steve-O, g'day Steve-O. He always seemed to be, I don't know about happier than me, but he was always at peace, nothing ever really sort of rocked his world. He would just come out and say, look, that's bullshit, and if you don't like me saying that, well, I don't give a fuck. And anyway, so I just sort of started studying him from afar. I don't know if it was afar, I was just sort of like, well, why is he so at peace all the time? The fucking right wingers are doing this and they're gonna do that and they're gonna spazzing out, lefty style, as you do. And one of the things was, he said, I don't watch the news anymore. I'm like, you gotta watch the news, you gotta be informed, how are you gonna know what's going on and what they're trying to do to you? And like the way he basically explained to me was that, why are you gonna get yourself all worked up over things you cannot influence whatsoever, and like one of the things he talked about was, we were talking about climate change, and I was saying no, whether it's because he was of the firm belief that it's fucking bullshit, and I was of the firm belief that, well, I don't think so, that all the scientists are saying it's not bullshit, so I'll trust him over you. And he's like, look, I love the environment, but why are we focusing on this fucking big huge problem when we could be looking after the waterways? Let's stop throwing shit in the fucking river. Let's clean up after ourselves, let's start small before we attack this big huge thing. And he says, like, basically the whole issue is one group of rich bastards fighting another group of rich bastards for power and dominance, And whoa, mind blown, That's how I sort of took it. And that's sort of a bit sideways from where I was going with the news, but yeah, I noticed that he was just so at peace with life. And I'm like, maybe I should just stop watching the news, So I unfollowed news organisations on my social media, and I just made a concerted effort to not sit down. Well, I don't really watch TV anyway, but if the news is on when I'm on, at home on the telly, I just walk away. I've got no interest anymore. And you know what? I started to find myself at peace. I started to be able to talk to people and, realise that, he believes that because he's getting a complete different news source than I was, and he's getting that one because he's getting this, and, his algorithms, we're all getting a different news now, like back in the 60s and that, we're all sitting down to the same news. So, you can make a cogent, coherent fucking society, and these days you can't do that because you're getting two versions of supposed reality. Anyway, bit heavy, and maybe I'm not explaining myself too well, but anyway, long story short, look, I'm finding it hard to come up with videos, like topics for videos, probably because I don't watch the news, and sometimes I just gotta plan as it comes in the evening. Anyway, what are your thoughts on the news? Oh, that reminds me, I was going to speak of this book by Alain de Botton. It was about the news, and one of the things he spoke about was I did not read the entire book, but probably the first 5-6 chapters I read. I've got a lot of books like that. I find a lot of books you can just get 4 chapters in and you've got the gist of the whole book. You don't need to go any further. So that was one of them sort of books. But basically his idea was, like, you're outsourcing your thinking by watching the news. He said, like, people grew up in the Middle Ages, in the feudal eras. They never knew a fucking thing about what was going on in the town next, down the road. They didn't know what was going on in the capital, and it didn't matter because all they knew is they had to get up and they had to fucking till the fields, and they had to do this and they had to do that, otherwise they would starve. And they were more informed than we are because we are getting someone else's viewpoints, someone else's ideas, piped into us, you know, in a constant stream. Look at CNN or any of those bloody, you know, news organisations. Breaking news, breaking news. The breaking news is just some bloke has stood on a podium and said, this bloke over here is an asshole. And then, you know, now the world's on fire because, anyway, yeah, it's the news and it's, when you piss it off, it's almost like you've cut some fucking strings that you didn't really know were making you move like a fucking, what was that show? The marionettes. Oh, anyway, you know the one I mean. It's Thunderbirds, that's the one. Anyway, today's a beautiful day to be alive, and let me know what you think. Like and subscribe if you like the cut of my jib. Like and subscribe if you don't, just to, you know, hurl me with abuse. I don't care. But today's a beautiful day to be alive. It's the 14th, I believe, of November 2025.